As Michael mentioned, I'm Charity Hemphill Frierson, and I am with Mayor Ballard's Office of Education Innovation. Our director sends his regards. He got called away to visit in-laws in North Carolina, so I'm going to be standing in for him this evening. You know, I think you've seen that there are several great things happening in our city, and many of those things are being delivered by our school districts. So really, when I think about our role, we do serve a purpose in terms of providing public open enrollment, tuition-free options for families that maybe for whatever reason can't find something that fits their needs within some of the school districts that we've heard from. But the other thing that we have to remember is that my office works in the larger context of being a part of the city. So a lot of what you'll see today looks at what it means to do education, but as a municipal kind of arm or agency, and how that impacts the city overall. We really are focused more on education quality versus type, and we're happy to talk more offline about what that means. So let's get into it. So I know that all of you are here this evening because you're well-informed individuals who really care about your community and know the value of education. Much of what you see on this first slide is common sense to a lot of us. We know that in many instances, the quality of life that we have is a function of the choices that we've made and the opportunities that have been afforded to us in terms of education. And so we want every child in the city to have the opportunity to be like the child that's highlighted in the green, that they can have a great quality of life, have a great education, and lead a life of choice. What we see all too often in the city is that, unfortunately, due to the dearth of opportunities to achieve a quality education, for a number of factors that sometimes can't be solved and controlled for by education exclusively, a lot of young people in our city are falling into the red. And that hurts all of us. I get, as someone who lives just west of Midtown, my husband and I are west of Kessler in Michigan, so we're actually zoned for Washington Township proper. I was really excited to see them there. That for a lot of us, if you live in Midtown, we're kind of in our own little enclave and life is going great for us, but we do and are impacted by those folks that fall into the red. So what we'll see is when we think about where people live, I always think of this slide as almost like our Maslow's hierarchy of self-actualization slide. What you'll notice is that for a lot of people, of course, we're assuming that you've achieved your basic physiological or biological needs. You know, you have food, you have water, maybe from time to time your job lets you sleep and go on vacation. Once you have that settled, look at these first three things. So safety, level of crime, that's one of the first reasons why people pick to live where they live. But once we satisfy that, because that's that second layer, if we go up from the base of that Maslow's hierarchy, then we really get into things like quality of education. I'm a product of that. I did public education K-12, however, I was educated in a suburb of the main city that I was at because my parents picked where they lived based on the schools. And it shouldn't have to be that way. You all should be able to continue living in Midtown in the neighborhood of your choice and know that there's going to be a great option to serve your children or your grandchildren. So, as I mentioned, we were going to contextualize this in terms of what it means to live in and work for a city. Let me stop and clear the slide for you a little bit first. So you'll notice that bottom blue line, that is Center Township population from 1950 through 2010. You'll notice that our green line is township population from 1950 to 2010. Then we have Marion County overall, so that's how we add back in Speedway, Beech Grove, some of those independent cities that are still in the county. And then we have the MSA. So we think about our friends from Zionsville and Noblesville who were just here. They are included in our MSA. And so what we see a lot of is people are leaving Center Township proper over the last 60 years or so. The townships are growing some. Marion County overall grew some. But most of that growth is out in Hamilton County, in Johnson County, and understandably so. People are making choices for themselves and for their families based on the type of education options that are available. Now, before you say we're jumping from correlation to causality, let's take a look at the next slide. So a lot of people will say, well, prove to me that people are leaving because of the education. When we look at the ages of where population is shrinking and where population is growing, a lot of it is based on whether or not people have children. So I don't know how many of you came to Midtown, particularly Broad Ripple, after you finished college and maybe did what this slide is saying, stayed when you were in and first got out of college. Maybe you turn 25 or so and maybe you get married. Maybe at 30 you have your first child. What you see on this slide is that when people turn 35, they start leaving the city. And if we kind of just think about the flow of life, in many instances, it certainly could be that, if you have your first child at 30, when you're 35, your little boy or girl is going to kindergarten, and you have to find somewhere quality that you want them to be placed. The other thing that gets tricky, if we think about you all as folks that maybe came here when you finished college, or for people who are Butler grads, lived in Midtown in college and stayed afterwards, is, a lot of you all have done fantastic jobs and worked very hard to build your careers. And we certainly appreciate that. As a city, we certainly value and appreciate our lower income residents as well. But if you think about it as an organism, it takes everyone to make the whole city run. It would be like someone saying, well, I have a heart, but I don't need my brain, or whatever the case may be. You need two eyes, that sort of thing. So really, we do need to have a population across all income brackets. But unfortunately, what we see a lot of is our lower income residents, who we love, value, and appreciate, are growing at a faster rate than our higher income residents, which makes it hard to provide the infrastructure such as police, all of different services that we all care very deeply about. And as someone who works for the city, I'm also impacted by those things. I'm out rolling around in the snow with you all and, going through Broad Ripple, making sure that I'm gonna get back to my car okay. But in order for us to provide that, we have to make sure that it's a place that everyone can stay. And we feel like that we're able to address that by providing quality schools. So you see that we've done quite a bit over the last, now over a decade. Mayor Peterson started the office under his administration, and Mayor Ballard continued it. And so you see that now we have 34 charter schools, and we have the 4 turnaround academies. When you look at it in aggregate, my office provides oversight for schools serving 15,000 students here in Marion County. You'll see that we're spread out a bit. You'll see that, unfortunately, not many of them are directly in Midtown, but you'll see in a moment that we're working on that, and there are a couple of places that do serve a lot of Midtown students. So this is a place that I'm sure many of you are very familiar with, although it's south of the Midtown boundaries. We're very proud of Heron High School and the work that they have done over the last 10 years or so. And it's not just us that's proud of them. You'll notice that the Washington Post has recognized Heron as not only being one of the top high schools in the state of Indiana, but really one of the top and most effective high schools in the country. And I think that really says a lot. What's also interesting to note is it's not just people coming from the outside and looking at what we're doing at that school in particular and getting excited. We do have some local awards. So the Indiana Institute for Quality of Education recently just recognized the school. And that says a lot because that organization, like our office, focuses primarily on school quality and not school type. We are working to expand our footprint into Midtown, so you'll notice that Founders Classical Academy will be a K-8 classical model school. And what we mean by the classics is as they get older, you're thinking about reading Shakespeare. We did ask them to show in some of the classics and kind of storytellers that are from here in Indiana because we want the students to have local enriched literature that they look at and understand. They are going to open in Midtown fall of 2015. Caroline Farrar, who is the executive director of Meridian Kessler, is actually one of their board members. So we asked that group when they came here and applied for a charter to create a board very intentionally of folks who live in and understand Midtown. So I will leave you with this. Please take some time to read and really internalize the mayor's vision for education. A lot of it centers around what we've talked about tonight, that we want this to be a city that all children, regardless of where they start from, have the opportunity to achieve a high quality education that gives them the opportunity to lead a life of choice. Thank you.